Hi everyone, Adrian Groenewald, Global Leadership Platform, and this is our Global Leadership Conversation series. This is the first of it. We've done it on all the continents of the planet, and we talk about the global leadership crisis and what we can do, what kind of qualities and attributes we need to develop if we're going to turn it around, if we have any hope of doing that. And I've got someone who's got practical experience, a lot of experience, worked on several continents herself when it comes to leadership development and the industry that we find ourselves in. Barbara Walsh, she is the MD of Metaco, strategic leadership consultants, and they work with organizations, various different organizations. She also had an interesting experience recently trying to partner fully with a large organization and have learned some hard lessons there. And we'll ask her towards the end of the interview what she's learned as a leadership expert and a leader herself. Barbara, welcome.
Thank you, Adrian.
Okay, so we've got a global leadership crisis. Someone asked me on LinkedIn the other day, well, what exactly is this crisis? So I briefly try to explain, if I can call it that. It's quite broad. It's not a very defined situation. So in essence, tell us how you would define the global leadership crisis.
Well, I think if we look at what's happening in our own neighborhoods, if we look at what's happening in our country and in the world globally, it seems that leaders, if we define leaders as people that others want to follow, the crisis for me then would be the fact that it seems that there aren't that many leaders that others do want to follow. That actually leaders are not being they're not inspirational. They're not the kind of people that others look up to and buy into. But actually, there seems to be more resistance against what's going on in senior circles, for want of a better word, than there is buy-in. So for me, that's what the leadership crisis would be. Where are the leaders that people can align with and buy into, and the leaders that will actually make the world? We hear about environmental crises, but not much being done about it. We hear about organizational crises and all the scandals that are happening in very large organizations. But what really happens? What are the consequences? And it doesn't seem that there is that much. The environmental one, there will be consequences, and by the time people suddenly wake up to that and decide to do something, or decide to do more than is happening now, it may be too late. But in terms of actual organizations, there doesn't seem to be a huge amount of consequence for bad behavior, lack of governance, lack of ethics. It almost seems to be the way things are done in many parts of many organizations.
So just very quickly, tell me, why do you think, or what lies behind the fact that we don't have leaders that people want to follow? What are leaders doing wrong or not doing, in essence, that results in people not wanting to follow? And as you say, someone commented recently that on every single continent we have uprisings, people marching against leaders and wanting them to vacate their seats. So yes, we have more and more of that. People don't just follow because of title. But what do you think really leaders are doing wrong that results in people not wanting to follow them?
So for me, what I'm seeing more than anything else, or from my perspective, is that leaders are very individualistic. Leadership in itself is actually a collective noun, and leadership would imply that there's more than just one person or a narrow band of people, perhaps, who make all the decisions and come up with all the answers. And I think that's what's behind all the uprisings, etc., is that they're forgetting that this is a different world now. Maybe 50 odd years ago, before the internet and global connectivity, that was possible. But now people know what's going on out there. They're far more informed. They have access to more information. And actually, people want to participate in the decisions that are made and not have other people's thoughts and impressions, which very much are generally around a narrow band of profit and people that benefit from it. But actually, they're wanting more, instead of necessarily all being about profit and personal individual growth. What people, I think, are looking for is more collective leadership, having the ability to participate in decisions that affect everybody.
Yeah. Okay, so with that as a backdrop, what would you believe is the most important quality or attribute we need to develop in leaders or awaken in leaders, if it's already in there, if we are going to turn around this global leadership crisis?
So for me, it would probably be systemic awareness. I don't think leaders actually consider well enough the impact, the wider impact of the decisions they make and the actions that they take. And if they do they really care about it? So that would then tie into how do they connect with their stakeholders so that they are so that what they're doing is aligned and connected with what their stakeholders need and want from them.
Okay, systemic awareness. So it's the ability to see how everything connects with everything, how everything impacts everything, how no one is in isolation anymore, the big picture of how we're impacting our environment and the families of our employees, just always having a interconnected sort of picture.
That's right, and the word that you use there, interconnected, is a really important one, because there are all sorts of different parts of systems, and this is where systemic awareness is very different to systems awareness. Systemic awareness looks at the connections between things. What's connected? What's become disconnected? And if it's disconnected, there's going to be a problem.
So if I'm just focused on the profit and the stakeholders, shall we say, the very direct stakeholders of my large organization, and I don't go broader than that, or I don't consider the broader stakeholders, the environment or whatever.
Communities.
Communities, correct, like mines and so on. Then I will not succeed in today's world, and maybe that's why we're seeing so much, so much crisis all over the place. All right, systemic awareness. Can you bring that out in leaders? So how would you train and develop leaders to possess this systemic awareness quality or attribute? The leadership development industry is multi-billion-dollar industry. Are we training leaders to do this? If this is your number one choice of quality we need, how do you bring that out in a leader? Just give us a pointer or two on that.
Yeah. So what you've just described now in terms of how businesses or the extent of the leadership development industry is true. I mean, business schools are MBAs and MBLs and all sorts of programs, financial programs, CAs, etc., are all they're all well and good. They're great, but what they're doing is they're developing the leader in an individual context. They're developing individual skills. They're developing individual perspectives, and I think that they're missing something really important here. They're not developing collective leadership. And so for me, what needs to happen is that people need to be developed collectively. So if you take an organization, instead of sending somebody off to do a business school degree, how about developing with their team, and the team at whatever level of seniority that is, develop the individual with their team in the context of the most important work that they're doing. And that will help them to develop more of the stakeholder awareness as well, because it's something they have to be paying attention to. It helps them to become future fit, because there's a strategic element in that as well. And no one person can ever have all the answers. So it's moving away from this kind of heroic CEO or heroic leader with all the followers, to actually having a team of people who are standing shoulder to shoulder, looking at what the future needs from them and how they then engage with the future and engage with their stakeholders to deliver that.
So I don't know if I'm putting words in your mouth, but contextual development. So don't develop leaders in isolation only, but certainly in context with their team, in their current context that they find themselves in, can develop them on their job with the current perspective that
in the middle of their most important work. Yes.
Where does that put the rise of executive coaching, which is a very one-to-one thing, isn't it? And a big industry. Where would you place that within that answer?
Well, that's quite an interesting question as well, because coaching also needs to evolve. It needs to evolve beyond what it was. It was coaching. The rise of coaching originated mostly in the 20th century, and things have moved on now. So we're starting to see a huge interest in team coaching now. developing teams collectively. It doesn't mean that individual coaching is not important. I believe that it is, but I think it can't be in isolation. Otherwise, you're doing exactly what the business schools do and developing somebody in their own context. But what does that mean for how others experience them and how they engage with the world around them?
Okay. But also, I believe very strongly that the more I discover my true self and who I am, my best self, the better I will be out there. So there's a role for Barbara and Adria continually being on a journey of self-discovery, making sure that I'm healthy as a human being, because that reflects in how I act towards my team. So you're not discounting that. You're just saying, hold on.
Not discounting it. It's just not the only way of coaching anymore.
Okay, 100%. It's too complex. Otherwise, we are, in a way, sustaining the fallacy that it's a heroic leader, and if I become a good leader myself, then I'll do great things, and it's never about me only. Okay. All right.
Even when we do individual coaching, which we do, it's always in a systemic context. Oh. So the kind of coaching that we've called it systemic relational coaching. So who am I and how am I showing up in the world in the way that people need me to be? Yeah. And how is, to what degree is that congruent with me? And do I need to adapt? Or, how do I step up to be the best person that I can be in the context of the world, of the systems of which I'm a part?
I did have a serious conversation, excuse me, with the president of Comensa the other day. And I explained the weakness in coaching as I see it, is that if I coach you, Barbara, then I see the world, you see it, because you reflect it to me. But you're not at all necessarily seeing your world objectively and how people view you and how you view people. And your reality is your reality, but it's not real necessarily. So if coaching,
it's only your reality.
Coaching remains just that's the solution to fixing you as a leader or helping you improve as a leader out of context with a team and all of that, the playing field. Imagine coaching a team but never seeing them play on the field. I mean, that's ridiculous. Okay, now Barbara, very important, the recent context for people who don't know yet. Barbara, some time back, took her leadership business and started partnering with an airline that we have in South Africa called Comair, who have done fairly well for the airline industry over the last few years. If one considered the context of how others are suffering and failing, but as you created I want to call it a leadership school with them, you can give us the detail and an organization with them. Things fell apart very quickly. It seems like you may have learned some really hard lessons over the last year or two as that relationship deteriorated. And I guess your business, your leadership consulting business, was at risk in this whole process. So you've learned a lot, and I don't want to say too much, but without going into the detail, people can go and read. They can Google your business. It's been written about quite extensively around here. What have you learned from that? I mean, maybe you could have been destroyed as a business. Great hopes you had, very exciting, getting money coming into your business. You can expand and grow and this and that, and then it just went south very quickly. Must have been very disappointing, very demotivational. But you're smiling. You're recovering the business. You're taking them on legally. Gosh, you must have learned a lot.
We have. So when we sold the business into Comair, it was with a very big vision to be the leadership arm of a world-class, well, it was actually a world-first aviation academy that they were busy developing. The academy would have been the largest of its kind in the world and very multifaceted, sort of almost cradle to grave aviation development with leadership integrated into every part of that and as a standalone. So the vision was huge, and that was with the former CEO, Eric Venter. And that was what we bought into. And we just thought, wow, the opportunity to be a part of something like that that's going to have such a big impact and literally be a life-changing place for people to come and learn was amazing. So that was why we sold Metaco into Comair. We'd worked with Comair for over 2 years beforehand, knew the business well, so we were quite comfortable. We felt that the values were aligned, there was a good fit, and we were quite comfortable selling our business into that. What happened over the course of the year was that things started to change very, very quickly. the CEO of the airline moved out to become more of a group CEO, which there was nothing wrong with that. I mean, Eric was still very much the leader of the business. As new leadership came in, what we started to see was almost like from the board level, a divide and conquer scenario starting to happen. And eventually that led to the plans for the academy being very much downscaled from one part of the business. And in the middle of this year, in May this year, Eric Venter resigned and new CEOs, joint CEOs came in. What we've discovered since then is that there was never board alignment between what members of the board, what some members of the board were envisioning, and what other members of the board felt that Commie should be focusing on. And if there was one really big lesson that I've learned, and it's something that we've worked with the teams, the senior teams that we work with around the world, and have now had to really take a step back and look at our own business and our own practice, was there really ever board and exco alignment in Comair? And looking now, it appears that there wasn't. And that as the board started to split, so did exco start to split as well. And that we were collateral damage. That's really what happened, was we were collateral damage. But in that happening, we weren't prepared to sit back and allow our business just to crumble as a result of it, and it very easily could have. Ethics and governance as it started to show themselves up in the business, within the business, were clearly not a top priority. And we took a step back and said, hold on a second, if we don't stand up to this, are we worth the salt for the companies that engage us? We've just had a black swan event happen to ourselves. We really didn't expect this to happen, but now how do we take everything, the systemic team coaching approach that we use with our the companies that we work with, and apply it back into ourselves to ride through this, to be able to come through it? And yes, it's taken a lot of courage, it's taken a lot of time, it's taken a lot of hard decisions in being able to rationalize and stabilize the business and get it onto a platform where it can grow again. But what we essentially had to do is get a team of experts around us. We were never going to be able to do this on our own. We didn't have the necessary knowledge and expertise. So using our network and our networks, we pulled in the most incredible team of people that are working with us and helping us and assisting us through this. And that actually is going, I think, to be our success in the longer run. In taking on the legal challenge, we believe we have an outstanding case, and we're prepared to take it. We know there's always a risk legally. That's just one of the things that there is. But actually, what have we got to lose? If we didn't do this, we would have lost our business anyway. So we really are just standing up for what we believe and standing up for the work that we do, using it as our framework for taking the company into the future.
It's very interesting how a crisis is either an opportunity, the best opportunity you have, or it's your downfall. And one can make those two choices, can't you? It seems like you've made a conscious decision that this will spark a greater business. This will spark a better future, and you'll take the learnings and go and apply it even more practically with your clients, as opposed to lying down and just being beaten up by something or someone large. And small can take on large these days.
Well, they can, because it's a different world out there.
Yeah,
it's a very connected world. So that's really what we've tapped into, is connecting. Yeah. Using our network, connecting through our network. And I don't think that at some point in time that the story will be written. I don't think this has actually ever been done anywhere, and certainly not anywhere that we've researched, in how so many different experts have come together and had to work together, even when they've said, we tend to work on our own. It's been, guys, we really need you to work together, because that makes us more than the sum of the parts. And that, I think, is going to be our success.
We wish you well. Thank you for getting your voice out there for our Global Leadership Conversations series. And thank you for sharing just a few thoughts on your latest experience. And certainly, the world has a lot of empathy for the small man, woman, the small guy, the small
Yeah.
person. Well, if one, you would get a lot of support. I'm pretty sure. Right, or whoever is right or wrong, that's not, when you go into social media, people follow the emotion very often, and the emotion is very much not for the big guy anymore. So they must be very careful. They must be very careful what they can do once you start rallying some activists on social media. But good luck with the legal process, good luck with your business, and keep building good leaders out there. We appreciate your time. And that is Barbara Walsh, MD of Metaco, strategic consultants, leadership consultants, growing leaders out there, and we appreciate your time. All the best.
Thank you, Adrian.
Bye-bye.